It's like a buttermilk donut and a pound cake came together to make something magical.
Tell me that does not look exactly like the donut of your dreams.
Hi, I'm Micah and I'm a recipe developer for Southern Living. And I'm in my home and I'm gonna show you how to make our glazed buttermilk donut cake, which is just as delicious as it sounds. In addition to looking like a donut on the surface, the structure and the makeup of the cake is pretty similar to a buttermilk donut. To get things started, I have my oven preheating to 350 degrees. If you look in the recipe, you'll notice that it calls for baking spray with flour, which is an incredible invention. However, if you don't have it on hand, you can simply coat your baking pan in either Crisco or butter, and then toss some flour in there and tilt it around so that it's evenly coated and all of the crevices have flour in it. This is really important because it prevents any of the cake from sticking to the pan when we take it out later. To start, I'm gonna cream together 1 cup of softened butter and 1.5 cups of granulated sugar. All right, my butter is incredibly fluffy.
Look at that. So now I'm gonna scrape down the sides of my bowl
And proceed with adding the eggs. Now that the eggs are fully incorporated, I'm going to add my vanilla. Okay, I have my butter, sugar, egg, and vanilla mixture right here. And then in this bowl, I have 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour. And to this, I'm gonna add 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of kosher salt, 3/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. And nutmeg has that sweet, warm, really intense spicy flavor that, believe it or not, is what makes plain donuts often taste like plain donuts. So nutmeg goes in. And then lastly, I have 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. And that just helps to offset some of the acidity from the buttermilk that's going in later. Okay, so I have these ingredients all together. I'm just going to whisk them until they are fully incorporated. That nutmeg smells incredible. If you have ground nutmeg in your cupboard, obviously use that. But if you have whole nutmeg and the time to grate it yourself, it really does make a world of a difference. Okay, so I have my dry ingredients here, and I have 1 cup of buttermilk here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to, on low, incorporate the dry and the liquid ingredients by alternating, beginning and ending with the dry. So I'm gonna add 1/3 of this, 1/2 of the buttermilk, another 1/3 of this, the rest of the buttermilk, and then the last of the flour, and we'll be done with the batter. All right, I'm just gonna take my spatula and scoop down off of the paddle. And then I'm gonna take my bowl and I'm gonna go around with my spatula just to get any dry pockets that might be left incorporated. All right, my batter is done. And I'm just gonna transfer the batter into the pan and smooth out the surface so that it's nice and even.
Nice and smooth, relatively even.
And it'll even out the rest of the way as it bakes. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer this to my 350-degree oven to bake for about 50 minutes. Just use the toothpick test. If you insert a toothpick into the side of the cake and it comes out clean, it is good to go. All right, so my 50 minutes are up and my cake looks something like this, which is perfect. After the 50 minutes, I did the toothpick test and it came out perfectly clean. So I know that it's good to go. I'm gonna let it cool in the pan on this wire rack for about 15 minutes. And then I'm going to use an offset spatula, you could use a butter knife, to loosen the edges, and I'm gonna invert it onto this cooling rack to cool for about an hour. And then we will glaze our cake. And this glaze is incredibly simple. It only has 2 ingredients, 2 cups of powdered sugar and 1/4 cup of water. So I'm going to take my water, add it into my powdered sugar, and use a whisk to smooth it all out. This is going to be, and it's supposed to be, a pretty runny glaze because you want it to get into all of the nooks and crannies of the surface of the cake, just like a glazed donut. And as you can see, it's very liquid. It runs very, very liquid. The recipe will tell you to brush it onto the cake with a pastry brush, and I seem to have misplaced mine. So I'm just going to gently pour it and use my rubber spatula to spread it around the surface. Over time, as the icing has time to dry out a little bit, it won't be as wet and it'll just be a kind of matte, barely glossy glaze.
Tell me that does not look exactly like the donut of your dreams.
It's gonna be incredibly fluffy. It's going to have the really fragrant aroma of vanilla and nutmeg. And it's gonna remind you of the perfect buttermilk donut. All right, so now is the time I've been waiting for. I'm gonna cut into the cake. Oh, it cuts through so nicely. It's really tender and soft, and yet that glaze gives a little bit of that kind of like a cracked exterior. Look at this cake, y'all. It's so soft and tender on the inside. So I have treated myself with a cup of coffee, and now I'm gonna take my first bite. Wow, I mean really, the crumb is airy, it's sweet, it's flavored with vanilla, there's that hint of nutmeg that is just perfect. It's like a buttermilk donut and a pound cake came together to make something magical. And I hope you think so too. If you enjoyed what you've seen today, subscribe to the YouTube channel for Southern Living. Thanks so much.